Today's lesson is multiplying and dividing rational numbers. The objectives is on this first section is multiplying rational numbers, and then division is right after this. Identify property of multiplication. Is 1 times a number equals that number. The identify property of 0 is 0 times a number equals 0. The multiplication property of -1 is -1 times a number will equal its opposite. So -1 times 8 equals -8. And if you multiply by the same sign, you will get a positive answer. If you multiply by different signs, you will get a negative answer. Those are rules. They do not change. All right, example 1. It's a negative times a negative, so it's going to equal a positive, and 9 times 4 is 36. B, a positive times a negative is a negative, and 4 times 6 is 24. C, now we have fractions, so I'm going to make it -5 over 1 times 2/3. If I can reduce it ahead of time, I'm going to, but 3 does not go into 5. So that's it. We're going to multiply across. A negative times a positive is a negative. 5 times 2 is 10. And 1 times 3 is 3. And then I want you to figure out the mixed number. 3 goes into 10. Well, there's a negative there. 3 times with 1 left over, and the denominator stays the same. Why don't you do D by yourself and put me on pause and see if you're correct. Push play when you're finished. All right. For D, a negative times a negative is a positive, so it's 39.2 when you multiply them together. Example 2. It says evaluate or substitute each expression for x equal -20 and y equal -3. So you're going to have -2 times x is -20 times y, which is -3. And a negative times a negative is a positive. So this is going to be +40 times -3 is -120. B, I have a negative on the outside. X is -20 times y, which is -3. These two would make a +60, and then there's a negative on the outside. Why don't you try C and D? Put me on pause, see if it works. Come back when you're finished and see how you did. All right, for C, I have -20 times -3. Remember, these become positives, and so it's -20 times, that's a time sign right here, times 3 equals -60. D, it's -2 times -3 times -20 times -3. I multiplied the 2 and 3 together, that got me 6. And I multiplied the -20 and the second -3 together, and that made +60. So 6 times 60 is 360. Example 3. It says right here, multiple choice. So we're going to have a multiple choice. It says you can use the function T equals, or temperature, which we'll get in here, equals -5.5 times A, which is altitude, over 1,000 to calculate the change in temperature, T, in degrees Fahrenheit for an increase in altitude, A, measured in feet. A hot air balloon starts at the ground and then rises 8,000 feet. This would be considered my altitude. How far I went up. So using the formula, I would have negative 5.5 times 8,000 over 1,000. And 1,000 goes into 8,000 8 times, so it's going to be negative 5.5 times 8. And that answer is 44. But it's a negative on the 55, so it's negative 44 degrees Fahrenheit. So you look up on A through D, and D is your answer. Example 4. Now, I have to say they look the same, A and B look the same, but they aren't. One has parentheses and one doesn't. So let's start with A, which does not have the parentheses. That negative just is out there, out in front of the parentheses. And then the fourth power is telling me only goes to the 3. So I am multiplying the 3 4 times. So this is 9 and this is 9. And then you still have a negative out there. So 9 times 9 is 81 and you have a negative. So it's negative 81. B, this time the 4 also goes to the negative because they're in parentheses. So it's going to be negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Negative 3 times negative 3 is 9. Multiply them and you'll get 81. So that's the difference. Okay, if you have fractions, it's kind of the same way. For the fourth power, I had to do negative 3 4 times. With squared or with fractions, it's the same thing. I have the minus sign on the outside. And then I have 3/4. I'm going to multiply it only twice because it's squared. I have the negative, and then I'm going to multiply. 3 times 3 is 9, and 4 times 4 is 16. If you can reduce it, that means you could have reduced it inside before you multiplied, and so you can't reduce. So there's your answer. Now we're getting to division. If you have the same sign on division, it will be a positive sign. If you have opposite signs, you're going to subtract them. And then what you have is the inverse property of multiplication is a number times its reciprocal, which means you flip the fraction. So equals 1. So like I took number 2, I took the number 2 right here. Oops. I took this number 2 and I flipped it. So fraction for number 2 is 2 over 1, and if I switched it or did the reciprocal, it would be 1 over 2. And if I wanted to multiply them, I would reduce ahead of time. Well, 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 2 one time. So 1 times 1 is 1 over 1, which equals 1. So that's how they come up with the inverse property of multiplication. So let's try it. Okay, so I'm going to do one with you, and then I'd like you to try the others. So they're opposite signs, so you're going to make it a negative, and 12 divided by negative 4 is 3. So it's negative 3. I would like you to try B and C on your own. Pause me, and when you're finished, please put me back on. All right. B, I have both of them are negative, so the answer will be positive, and 42 divided by 7 is 6. C, I have both of them are negative, so the answer is going to be positive, and negative 39 divided by 3 is 13. Okay, example 6. Notice again we're going to substitute or evaluate. Substitute, ST. And I'm going to plug them in. So I have remember I have these negatives on the outside. So it's going to be negative 20 over negative 4 plus 2 times y, which is 6, divided by z, which is negative 1. I wrote them down. So now I'm going to do the negative and negative in front of the 20. So those are positives. So 20 divided by negative 4 is negative 5. Plus 2 divided by 6 is 12 divided by 1, negative 1. Next you do the division. So 12 divided by negative 1 is negative 12. So it would be negative 5 plus negative 12. And they're both the same sign, so it's going to be negative 17. I'll have you do B, but I'm going to do C with you on your own, but I'll do C with you right now. So it's going to be 4 times negative 1 plus negative 20 over 2 times 6. So 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 plus negative 20. And 2 times 6 is 12. Negative 4 plus negative 20 is negative 24 over 12. 24 divided by 12 is 2. And it's a negative and a positive, so the answer is going to be negative. Why don't you try B by yourself and check out the answer as soon as you're finished by pushing play. All right, so the answer is negative 11. Notice where I placed everything and check it out. Put it on pause if you need to check out what I did. But remember to do order of operations. Okay, example 7. This time we have some fractions. I have x over y. Or another way of looking at it is x divided by y. And this will work really well when it comes to fractions. So if I look at it, it would be negative 3/4 divided by 1/2. Now when you divide fractions, you do the reciprocal, which means you flip the second number. So it would be negative 3/4 times 2 over 1. I can reduce. 2 goes into 2 one time, and 2 goes into 4 two times. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. And 2 times 1 is 2. And you can turn it into a mixed number too, which is negative 1 and 1/2. B. I have y divided by negative 8 times, in parentheses, negative 8 times x. I'm going to plug it in, which is y is 1/2 divided by negative 8 times negative 8 over 1, because we're working with fractions, times negative 3/4. I'm going to reduce. 4 goes into 4 one time, and 4 goes into 8 two times. And then that would be 1/2 divided by, they're both negative, so it's a positive. It would be 6 over 1. Again, you're dividing, so you do the reciprocal, so it's 1/2 times 1/6, which equals 1/12. And there's your answer. Talk to you later. Bye.